Welcome to this episode of Conversations. I'm Christine June, a Public Affairs Specialist at the Marshall Center, and today my guest is Miss Aurora Martin. Miss Martin is the Senior Advisor with the International Relations Department of the Ministry of Labor, Family, and Social Affairs, National Agency for Equal Opportunities in Bucharest, and she is also a Marshall Center Alumna. This morning, January 26, 2016, Ms. Martin gave a presentation on security conflict and conflict management, implications for civil society, to 42 participants from 25 countries attending the Marshall Center seminar on regional security, which focuses specifically on regional dynamics. Here she is with me today to talk a little bit about her current position with the Romanian government and her take on the importance of the Marshall Center's 11,000 plus alumni network and how it has helped her in her career. And of course, I will ask her some questions about her presentation this morning. Thank you so much for joining us today, Aurora. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for inviting me.
To set the stage a little bit, can you briefly tell us about your current job? What are the things that you do either on a daily basis or what you're working on right now?
What I'm doing now is to work on the process of ratifying the Istanbul Convention. Istanbul Convention is the convention for combating the violence against women, especially domestic violence. The convention was signed by 39 countries and ratified by 18. Romania is one of them, and the convention was approved by the government and by the parliament, was signed by the president, and now we are on the last phase of ratifying the convention. Other duties in my job is to promote equal opportunities, and I'm doing this especially in the educational field because I worked before in teaching in high school and university, so it's easy for me to promote these ideas.
As I had mentioned earlier, Aurora is a Marshall Center alumna, and she is a graduate of the Marshall Center's program on Applied Security Studies in 2008 and the seminar on Transatlantic Civil Security in 2015, as well as she spent some time in 2010 as a Marshall Center scholar. So my question is, how has your Marshall Center experience helped you in your current job? Or you're also a academic lecturer in international relations and good governance. And as you have mentioned, you've been a senior advisor within the Romanian government and the parliament.
For me, and not only for me, Marshall Center is a very prestigious institution. Of course, there are many prestigious institutions in the world. But what is very specific in Marshall Center is not only the international framework, not only the friendly atmosphere, quite familiar, but also the possibility to have access not only to the very, very qualified lectures. There are a lot of lectures in the world, in European Union. What is important here is that you have access also to lectures taught by practitioners. And this opportunity could make you switch from being a passive actor, a listener, to take action. I came here in Marshall Center in a period of my life when I realized that I have to change something in my life. Before working in the institutional framework, I worked in educational sphere. I taught in the Faculty of Political Science, International Relations. And at a certain moment, I realized that I have to put my theoretical background, my experience in practice, to switch from theory to practice. So I accepted this challenge of myself to work, to apply my knowledge in institutions. This happened here as well in the Marshall Center, because you come here, you assist some lectures, and this process began to work in you and to change something. You don't go back home the same. You having in mind so many lectures, so many experience on vertical side and on horizontal side, because what is important here, you don't receive only this knowledge from professors, but also from the other attenders of the course. It's very important communication on horizontal field, because from this communication, Marshall Center experience continues when you go back home.
And that's my next question regarding the alumni. The Marshall Center has an 11,000 plus alumni network, and we are very interested to find out from you if you have ever collaborated with an alumni or maybe a fellow classmate when you were here, instructors or any other contacts from the Marshall Center. And if you have, could you give us just a couple examples?
You come in Marshall Center like in a family. After that, you go back home as part of this family. So you feel it's natural to keep this connection, not only with professor, but also with the other people, because living here together for 3 months, as my past was, certain connections, certain strong connections.
They remain.
Remain, yes. I met, for example, I was in New York, and one of my ex-colleagues during the past, a Georgian lady who works for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, she was working for UN, so we met in New York. Then I was in Georgia, I met somebody there. I was invited for a lecture in the University of Belgrade. One of the students who is here for the course now, Anna from Belgrade, she came to see me. So of course Facebook helped us a lot, but also the global network is very useful to know each other about our involvement, our how we develop ourselves.
Did you ever contact an alumni if you had? For instance, if something at work, if you had needed to know about some other country, how they do it, some kind of security issue or women's issue, has that ever happened where you just, called somebody up from the alumni network and asked for their assistance answering a question or anything like that?
Yes, for example, for Georgia, I was invited to help the Georgian government to work for free visa. And I asked for help for my Georgian friends from Marshall Center, of course. And not only with colleagues from other countries, but also inside the country, we are a Marshall Center community. And my colleagues who were here with me in past, one of them is one of my best friends. We are helping each other in daily life. We work together, we collaborate for different articles, for different sessions, different conferences. Moreover, we have a very strong association, George C. Marshall Association of Romania. We organize annually a regional conference. So it's a very diverse connection, because every year there are other members who brings new Marshall Centers alumni from different parts of the world. With the association, we have a annual regional meeting, but we also have every month one meeting of the association. We invite somebody to talk, we choose a topic, and we want to talk, to share experience, to comment. For example, next month we shall have a meeting on the topic of refugees in European Union and in Romania, because we are preparing for receiving the first wave of migrants, and the opinions are contradictory. What is important is that people who are Marshall Center alumni and participate to these meetings, they go in their organization, in their institution, and share these ideas. So it's like a laboratory where we prepare some ideas. Some of them work in media, in TV. So the ideas are spreading in society. And this is also the role of Marshall Center, to prepare something here and to deliver it in our societies.
Okay. In our earlier conversations, you mentioned that this presentation that you gave this morning was a first for you as a guest lecturer. And congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
For our listeners, can you give an overview of your presentation this morning?
Well, my presentation aimed to touch the topic of human security and responsibility to protect. I have to add that to stress that these are my research topics in Marshall Center. When I graduated first the PAS, I presented a research on human security. Then when I came back in 2010 as Marshall Center Scholar, my research was in responsibility to protect. So what I did today, actually it was updated research, but it was like I received something from Marshall Center and it was time to give something back. And it was a very happy day for me to do this.
Yes, and I sat in on the presentation, as you know, and I learned a lot. It was very, very interesting. One of the things that caught my attention was that when you made the distinction between the government's responsibility to protect, which you called R2P, and the civil society's responsibility to support, which you called R2S. Can you expound a little bit for our listeners who weren't there at your presentation this morning?
The responsibility, they meet in the same point, but they come from different areas. The responsibility to protect is when a country, a state, a nation, a government is not able or is not willing to protect its own citizens, then the Security Council has the duty to intervene. So it's a question of sovereignty. That's why the concept of responsibility was so much debated, because it's an issue of sovereignty. When it's time to intervene in a country where the government doesn't protect its own citizen. I told at the beginning of the presentation, in the last 100 years, more citizens have been killed by their own governments than by foreign armies. This is a click. It has to make a click. We have to intervene. But to intervene is a matter of sovereignty. That's why so many debates related to this concept of responsibility to protect. Because if the state is not able or not willing to protect, so is the duty of Council of Security of the United Nations to take action. And it's not always easy. And talking about responsibility to protect, I also said during the questions session of Q&A, the best example is Myanmar and Darfur. In both cases, we had the inability of the state to protect its own citizens. In Darfur, it was genocide and the government was not willing to protect the citizens. In Myanmar, it was a natural disaster, a cyclone, and it provoked a lot of destruction. The international community wanted to help, but the government, because it was a military dictatorship, didn't want to accept the help. Of course, in both cases, Security Council of the UN decided to intervene with different results. In Myanmar, they succeeded to help population, but in Darfur, unfortunately, the intervention was inefficient. Regarding the responsibility to support, this is a very important duty of the civil society. I said at the beginning, I tried to see the civil society from a double perspective, as a victim in the conflict areas and civil society as an enabler. Speaking about the duty to support of civil society as an enabler in the conflict management.
Okay, and this is non-government organizations, right, for responsibility to support, right?
Yes.
That they can actually help where governments can't go in,
yes.
Correct?
Yes.
The other point of your presentation that I really found interesting was the importance that you put on the role of women and even children in peace and security. I think our listeners would be interested in that as well. Can you explain why you felt that it was important to include that aspect in your presentation?
Women need protection, especially in conflict framework, because in conflict framework, women, or when we talk about displacement of population, women not only face the usual dangers in these conditions, but they also are exposed to sexual traffic, to sexual violence, to forced abortion, to sterilization, to slavery, to...
But is it because that they are vulnerable, like you said, but they're also very important to a society? Is that why they're so important for the peace and security of a particular society?
They are important for peace and security. There are some resolution 1325, the first resolution. There are other connected resolution which stressed this role of women in the process of peace and security. What is interesting is that this resolution was approved in 2000, so late in our history if we look back at and how much injustice women suffered before. And I think about rape camps in ex-Yugoslavia, for example, or about using women, the body of women as an instrument of this fighting instrument, because it's a very subtle fighting instrument. Because when a soldier is on the battle, he has the will to fight, but when somebody tells him that the village where he lives was attacked by the enemy, and the enemy raped his wife, and his wife is pregnant with the child of the enemy, he's losing his motivation to fight. So it's a very subtle mechanism to fight against the enemy using the body of the woman.
Oh, I see. Because, and then you also brought up the fact like sex slaves and things like that, that it's even more common now to use those kind of things. All right, so thank you so much for joining us. That's all we had that time for today. But I really appreciate it, and I'm sure you'll be back at the Marshall Center.
I really hope so.